We continue on with Chapter 5 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, How It Works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders. But many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose, in a general way, what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. But we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. We're going to pause right there, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of discussion on this first page of how it works. So I'm going to start off by pointing out a few of the things that have been pointed out to me and that I point out to others. The first being in that first paragraph. There's two very, very important things. The first is that it tells us who does recover and who does not. So who does recover are those who have thoroughly followed our path. Who does not are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. The other thing that I think is probably the most important thing is the fact that the word honest or honestly is in that first paragraph 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the second time it is emphasized with a rigorously. So honesty might be a really good thing to have when we move forward in this program. The second thing in that second paragraph was what was told of me when I'm at a meeting and I'm sharing at a meeting, or if I'm working with someone new, is how I share. And the way I share is in a general way, and I tell what I used to be like, what happened, and what I am like now. I don't need to talk about anything else when I'm talking to a newcomer, someone I'm working with, or at a meeting. That is to be left as a private conversation with my sponsor. And not to speak on specifics, but to be very general. And then that last paragraph that I'm sure other people are going to touch on is, we beg of you. We beg you to try it this way because we know what happens when we don't. You know, we say we collectively being the first 100 men and women, and those who since they've read this and done this program have joined that we. We beg you to do it this way because we know it works, and we've tried a lot of other methods that you currently or have tried, and so we'd like you to try it this way. And then finally that, that one who has all power. And now we're going to sternly and very forcefully say, that one is God. May you find him now, like right now. Let's just insert him in here now, not tomorrow, not in 5 days. Just grab him, say hi. Dottie, I know you want to share.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Dottie, alcoholic. So when chapter 5 was written by Bill, I'm just going to give you a little bit of history versus all the other fun facts that Kim took from me to share. It says rarely have. Well, Bill wanted to have the word never have. And, the other 99 people who were alcoholics who were helping write this book said, no, it's rarely. And then when you see where it says a person failed, it's not that they failed at trying to be sober. They failed at having a God conscious. So they failed at having a God conscious to thoroughly follow our path. And Bill instead wanted directions instead of path, but they said to him that directions seemed too stern, and people they would turn their nose up to it. Again, with the honest, it's not just a little honest, it's completely honest. The rigorous honesty, you have to be ready to be open and honest about it all. Also, again, at the paragraph that says, at some of these we balked, that paragraph was written for Dr. Bob, because Dr. Bob wanted to try things his way, his old ideas, but with a twist. And fearless and thorough, he struggled with that, and he wanted to hang on to his old ideas. And yeah, and may you find him now. I have that triple, quadrupled underlined and written next to it. Not later, not 90 days, not tomorrow, now. Yeah, so I kind of was on the same path with Kim with that. So that's all I have, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of the history of how it was written the first time around. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Dottie. And yeah, I agree with that. Rarely have we seen and then never. And if we put never has a person failed, people who didn't follow the path thoroughly would be like, see, it doesn't work. It's like, well, you didn't really follow it thoroughly, but okay. Anybody else want to share on the first portion of how it works? Lee, absolutely. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lee. I'm an alcoholic. What occurs to me while I'm reading this, I do appreciate the history, like getting consultation and so on like that. So thank you very much for the history. But when I read this, unless they have the capacity to be honest, when I think about that, I think when I came into this program, my level of honesty was at one level, and now it's at a different level. And that's many, many years ago that I came in the program. And so I've had to learn that at the time, I was being as honest as I was capable of being. After studying this program more and more, I realized that, honest wasn't just sort of blurting whatever shit came in my head to be honest with you. It had to be honest with myself. And opening that onion is not something that happens instantaneously. I understand that I'm, connecting with God. I get that one. But I think my honesty has changed over time, and I feel more honest now than I did, say, 20 years ago. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And expanding on that as well, it's the thoroughly can be expanded in the same way as the honesty. I've had many people I've worked with that are like, we're trying to do a very, very thorough inventory, but sometimes we don't remember things, and people sit there racking their heads being, I want to be thorough. Well, we're as thorough as we are at the time, and that's why we have, this is a program we keep working and enhancing and growing, so that there's things that might pop up. I've had meetings where someone's shared, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that too, and I'm able to process that in my step 10 and work through it at the time. So the honesty and the thoroughness is at present, and we can grow and expand on that. Leslie.
Hi, alcoholic Leslie here. Okay, so just clarification. So those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the program.
Yes.
They're constitutionally incapable of being completely, I like that, honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They're not at fault. So that part, they are not at fault. Is that because they are just constitutionally incapable of being honest, or is it something to do with the genetics? Is it in their DNA that they've got this problem, or is it because I've heard of people like, I haven't been that praise God, haven't had going out part period. But I know of others in my group that were new, 6 months into it, 8 months into it, who have gone out drinking, and they've regretted it. And so I'm just kind of trying to get a grasp of what would that entail.
Okay, so for me, I break that into two parts. So people who cannot get this program are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the program. They are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. at that time. It doesn't mean that they never will be. It's just they're not willing to give themselves to this simple program. Right? But rarely have we seen a person fail who has said, okay, let me give it a try. And someone else might have a different opinion on that, but I have never seen a person fail who has actually tried the program as written in the book and has been willing to be honest.
Okay, because when I got into AA, and there was a lot of new people coming in, other old timers, like more seasoned people, they said they're not gonna stick around. They've gone out, a month. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, you gave up on them so fast, and it was like, no, they got to do the work.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a giving up on someone. For me, it's they're not ready to fully commit to the program.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Some people have to give their reservations a shot. Dottie wants to help you out. Here, hang on. Dottie, go ahead.
Okay.
Also, Leslie, like in my case, had I stayed out, say maybe another year drinking, I did such damage to my brain, I wouldn't have been able to be honest, right? So the damage that I did to my brain, like I had to retrain my brain to work properly. Like the right side and the left side stopped communicating. So they could have gotten themselves to say wet brain and then they're just not functioning and they won't be able to be completely honest because they no longer know what honesty is. So that could be what they're talking about too, because if you remember in some of the stories, you hear Bill mention about him getting close to wet brain and thinking they were going to have to put him away for good. Uh-huh. And so that's I think that's what he's referring to. So I hope that helps you a little bit.
We'll add Bev into the conversation. Bev, you're unmuted.
Yeah, and I also just looked it up. That's the wet brain part is exactly right. Constitutionally incapable is the term used in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous to describe a person who cannot recover from addiction. In other words, some individuals are thought to be so morally and physically bankrupt that providing treatment and AA for them is a waste of time. So that entails the wet brain part that Dottie's talking about. That's all.
Thank you, Bev. Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people, they're like, I fall into that category. I'm like, no, you fall into the not willing category. Keep coming back. Trish?
I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just really like the word balked. I've got balked like circled because I balked. And when I first came in the program, I always thought balked was like a horse because I've rode lots of horses that were very balky. But now that I'm looking back, I was balking because I wanted something easier and softer, and I thought I could just get a pill or something to make me not want to drink alcohol anymore. So yeah, now I'm glad I understand that people can balk as well as horses. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Trish. Yeah, the balked is a lot of that contempt prior to investigation. Margaret.
Morning.
Good morning.
Margaret, and I'm an alcoholic. And when I first used to hear how it works, I was 16 when I first went to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I was in and out for 3 years. And I was so afraid that I was going to be one of these people that was constitutionally incapable of being honest. What I know today, because things change and evolve, I was as honest as I could be at the present time. Mm-hmm. And I believe that I still had to be ready. And every time that I came to a meeting or that I was coming back, I thought that I was as ready as I could ever be. And I wanted to get sober and stay sober. I wanted that. But not for whatever reason, because I'm an alcoholic, there, in a few days or a couple of weeks, I would forget because that's, I believe, our nature. And then when I was ready, this program worked at that time. But I don't know if the expectation is that we all come in and stay in from day one, because it doesn't happen. But so long as we could keep coming back. And I will say that the other thing, and I heard this many, many years ago, a fellow in Vancouver by the name of Lou F. used to talk a lot about the Big Book. That's all he talked about. But what I wrote in my Big Book, and I know it's not written in here, but I've got cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient. And I do say that to all the people that I sponsor when I speak, because I do believe that this disease waits for us. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted, I mean, so many times I was coming back and my intention was absolutely to stay and to stay sober. And I thought that I was being as rigorously honest as I could be at that time. But my alcoholism, I went back out and then I came back, and I'm grateful to be back. But yeah, it makes me nervous a little bit when we think that people, I love it when people come in and stay in.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't my story. That's all.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Margaret. And I will say that the one thing, and I know like we've talked about it in some of our other meetings in our other Big Book study with the guys, but it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. That's this path, the path in this book. That's not it coming to meetings, getting a sponsor, getting a service position, keep coming back, meeting makers make it, put a plug in the jug. This is rarely have we seen a person fail who follows our path as outlined in this book. And I think a lot of people miss that, where they're like, I've come to AA, I've tried after AA, I've tried AA, I keep relapsing, I keep going out. But they're missing that AA is a fellowship and the program in the path is in the book. So I think it's important for us to carry that message in meetings as well, and to tell that to our sponsees or people that we're working with, that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is in the book. This is the path we're talking about. It's not the path of get a service position, keep coming back, get a sponsor. And I think that message gets distorted a little bit sometimes in the fellowship. Jeanette.
Hi everyone, Jeanette, alcoholic. I have underlined in my book, some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. And then the date 1999, that's when I relapsed. And the part where we're constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves scared the daylights out of me. There was so much self-doubt that it was right then and there, I knew that the suggestions that were made to me, I had to follow them 100%, or I was not going to get this program. And in reality, it's the program that gets us, I think. And for me, I entered into an intensive outpatient because sometimes we need more than just AA in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And, that's what worked for me. And I like the woman that said, the part that says we must be ready. I think that's the part that it's like, okay, I tried it my way. It didn't work. Now I'm going to listen 100% with my ears and see how you guys did it. And because of that, I'm still sober and continue to be. But I like the fact that, not everybody gets this program when they first come in. And that's why it's so important, where that part that says the only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. Because when I first came in, somebody said to me, you must do this and you must do that, I would have said, see ya, and, tried to find a different way. But none of them did. They showed me or told me how they did it. And to this day, I still listen. My meetings are important to me. The women in my network are important to me because I think that we're all teachers and we're all students, and I have to remain that way. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. And to expand on that as well, it doesn't say that they were constitutionally incapable of being honest. It stresses with themselves. So that's who we're not being honest with, is ourselves, not with other people. Darcy.
Oh, good morning. And there goes Fritzy.
Hi, Fritzy.
Off after somebody. So, yes, I'm Darcy. I'm an alcoholic. And thanks for calling on me. And I certainly appreciated everyone's shares. And I just wanted to add some things that I've kind of come up with. If it's going to be of value to anybody, it may or may not be. It's just, again, kind of how my mind works in terms of the being able to, quote, get the program. The studies that I've read stated that they also underscore the idea that addicts, and alcohol is a drug, addicts persist not because of an inability to control the desire to use, but from a failure of motivation. Granted, summoning sustained motivation can be a great challenge, and here it comes. It takes a lot of energy and vigilance. This is where our STEP program comes in, to resist craving, especially urges that ambush the addict unexpectedly. So it's a complex disease, and it certainly is. And what I wanted to do is address a couple of things. What motivation? I've listened to speakers, and I've listened to a lot of people. What was it that finally got them to the point where I can't do this anymore? And for a lot of people, it was different things. I listened to one gal who got her kids taken away from her, and that wasn't enough. And not that I'm saying anything, I'm not making any judgment at all. I'm just using different examples and other people's work in terms of just being able to support yourself. I can tell you that I came to a full circle. And one of the books I've read, I've always had a lot, is called The Purpose-Driven Life. And it's a Christian book. And I've always centered my life on purpose. God, where do you want me? What do you want me to do? Let's go. Let's get the best of myself that I can be today. And so I get to this point where I don't have to work anymore. I'm scratching my head going, and I'm thinking, and I keep thinking in the book about the person with the slippers and the robe or something like that. Because it's like, it's a big if you're not going to hurt anybody, and in other words, you're not driving, that kind of a thing, and you're not working, what's the issue? And I finally said, what has God got left for you to do? And you can't do it if you aren't sober. You have to present your best possible face. And then so that's just something that, for me, I keep asking myself, what is your motivation? I know what my vote, and I pray about the motive. What is it? What is the contingency management plan here? I can tell you, I had one friend that I met in the program years ago that lost everything. She lost her husband, who she loved dearly, and she came to A meetings, and I came in with a tennis racket. She played tennis back in the day for college, and so we kind of got to talking, and we spent some time together. And the reality of it is, there never was a time where she was sober, even in the meetings. And I couldn't understand it. And she did die of cirrhosis of the liver in her 50s, and that's one of the ones that it still comes to me. Is like, I guess it comes back to, what is the bottom? And again, what is the motivation? And I can't explain it. I don't have an explanation for that. It is a complex disease, this alcohol use disorder. But the other last one I'll throw out that I think is going to make a lot of sense to people is mental illness. If you've got some of this bipolar manic depressant, which I was a legal guardian for my brother, they're not in reality at all. And they're not going to be able to go into a 12-step program if they're not. He never drank at all or ever used drugs, but that person can't function. And that's it. That's my 2 cents on a Friday.
Thank you so much, Darcy. Okay, a couple more on this page, and then we do have to move on. Sherilyn.
Hi, everyone. Sherilyn, alcoholic. I just kind of wanted to point out some things that I find that have really helped me. My sponsor, when she took me through the big book, that our stories disclose in a general way paragraph. That's the hope. In hearing each other's stories, that's where we find the hope. We find the identification. That's what kept me coming back, were the stories and hearing the hope in you all's stories. And then I heard an old timer say that, we had to let go of the alcohol. Then we had to let go of our old ideas. And the whole of AA is really about letting go, letting go of the resentments, letting go of, so it starts with letting go. And then the word that I have highlighted in red. An old timer said, of all the words in How It Works, what is the most important word? And it's remember, because we forget. I forget when I was in and out drinking that how I forgot everything that you all said when I'm drinking, you know, and then when I come back, it's like, oh, I forgot how good I had it, the more sober I got. And then I go back out and it's like, I forget everything you said again. And so that's why I have to stay close. I don't ever want to forget. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll do 2 more, and then we're going to move on. Libby!
I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name's Libby. I'm an alcoholic. So excited to be on this meeting today. This is my first time on this particular meeting. I don't know what's taking me so long to get on it, but I am here. Thank you all for being here. I love this page. I love this page of the big book. This is, you know, really where the rubber meets the road for me. What I wanted to share about is the fact that, you know, it says, I agree so much with what you women have already said about being terrified that I was incapable of being honest with myself. And really the way that I read it and that what Kim says is like, I was afraid of being honest with other people. I messed that up. You know, I looked at it as like, I can't be honest with other people because I am so ashamed of what I've done, or these are the consequences that are going to happen if I'm honest. But I didn't read it in the paragraph which clearly says, you know, we have to be honest with ourselves. And that I was capable of doing, but I wasn't willing. I wasn't willing to do it. And that's why it was so scary to me. But what happened was, you know, and that for me wasn't actually the first time that I came into the program in 2010. I don't think I read the book thoroughly. I think I really was so desperate and so willing to do what my sponsor said that I just kind of like followed her lead. Like what happened for me was when I had read the book, when I could memorize it and tell you back to back what everything said, and then I relapsed, that's when I went back and started reading and seeing, oh my God, I don't think I can do this again. I don't think I can get fully honest. You know, because I knew what that looked like. I knew what the work looked like if I had to be completely honest with myself. And so that's why, even though I would come back in, I couldn't get more than a few months at a time because I was doing everything that Kim talked about, right? I was going to meetings. I had a sponsor. I shared the message. I half measured, and that availed me nothing, you know? And my half measures was that I wasn't willing to write a thorough 4-step. I wasn't willing to do exactly what I had been taught. And my sponsor kept looking at me and saying, how are you going to get better if you don't just do what you know the solution is? The solution is outlined in the big book, you know, it's just like Kim said, I have the capacity to be honest. I absolutely do. Do I have the willingness to be honest? And that really is, you know, the crux of my issue is my willingness. And so if I'm willing, and it says in this line, you know, are we willing to go to any length to stay sober? And there were times where I wasn't willing to go to any length because I wasn't willing to pull out the roots of my issues. I knew what it looked like to write a thorough 4-step. I knew how painful it was. I knew that it was going to take, you know, all of my honesty and all of my integrity, and it was going to take having to swallow big chunks of truth about myself that I didn't want to swallow. So, you know, I just really encourage people to look at that and ask yourself, like, am I capable? And if I am capable, if I don't think I'm capable, am I willing? And I also, I mean, I could talk about this line forever, but I don't want to take up too much time. I also wanted to just give a plug in again, what it talks about with the mental, you know, mental deterioration and mental disorders. And, you know, I qualify for that as well. And what I found was because I wasn't manic depressive, I had a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety that was later diagnosed. What I found was that I wasn't able to treat any of those things until I got sober. So for me, I was on antidepressants. I had a psychiatrist. I had all of that. That was all well and good. But when I started relapsing, none of those prescriptions worked. Nothing worked for me like the way Alcoholics Anonymous did. So what I needed to do was I had to get sober first, and then I had to look at my mental health. Because honestly, for me, my mental health comes in the form of I need to alleviate my depression, or else I can't get up out of bed to go to a meeting to share the message. So that's what it looks like for me. So when it affects, they both affect each other, but I recommend not letting that, if you have mental health issues, don't let that be that deterrent that, oh, I can't get it, because we all want to be terminally unique. We all want to be the one that's that one person that, we're just not at fault. We were born that way. Like, no, are you willing though? So that's it for me. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Livy. All right, last one on this, and we're moving on. Grace?
Yeah, hi, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I just want to very quickly make a remark with the girl before, Libby, and then there was one other had made it about that, those who suffer grave and emotional and mental disorders. A group of women from my home group bring a meeting to a nursing home where there is a woman who's a paranoid schizophrenic. She spent her life drinking and drugging. She was on the street. It was like a last resort that her family were able to get her into this facility. And she now has many years of recovery. And she reads the big book. She talks to us. She's now calls us on the phone. And she is. So it's like you don't want to give up on somebody because of their mental illnesses. They can be treated for their mental illnesses, as one person said, and they can still get on with the program. Of course, the desire to do it and some ability to get honest is necessary, but she's doing well, and we bring it in every week. And she just has hooked onto it, and has a life now. And I think she feels extremely grateful for that chance in life. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Grace. All right, we got to move on, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies only, no gentlemen. What am I talking about? I'll wake up one of these days. Half measures avail us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked His protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And I'm going to pause there for a reason, but let's talk about this page. So we start right off with half measures avail us nothing. So nothing, not half measures get us half results. Half measures give us nothing, no results whatsoever. So let's not do half measures. We stood at the turning point. So here we are at this turning point, and we are going to invite God in. We're going to invite God in and ask for his protection and care with complete abandon. And this is a step that a lot of people miss before they continue in this program. We want to invite God in. We're going to be getting spiritual consent here. You know, and this is something, if you're doing this with your sponsor or you're doing something in a group like we are doing here, we want to invite God in to carry us and to walk with us at this point. This is a very important pre-step to going into the steps. You know, we want to invite him into this circle. He's a gentleman most of the time. So we want to welcome him into this process and say something like, God, as we embark on this journey, we please ask for your protection and your care as we go through this program of action of recovery. Please watch over us and keep us safe and allow us full honesty. Amen. Now we've invited God into the space. Now we go into the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. I went through this and literally put check marks beside them. Check, check, check. Check marks are not good. But at this point where we're at, we can say, one, we admitted to ourselves that we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. We've done that in the first 4 chapters of this book with the doctor's opinion. So that we can say, yes, we've done step 1. We go to step 2. We've come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We've either come to believe or we are willing to believe. We did that in chapter 4. So we have completed step 2 as of this point. Now we are going to move in and we're going to do steps 3 through 11. We're going to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And I always like to clarify a few of these steps as they're written out. So 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, underlined and circled the word of ourselves. We all like to make a really good inventory of other people when we first start doing this program. So it's really important to point out that this is of ourselves. And then number 5 is we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 5 is not to tell someone else all of the horrible things that were done to you by all those people in step 4 who you've done their inventory. And I did that wrong the first 2 times. So I always like to clarify those 2 steps. And then we will get to doing more of those as we go through the book. Dottie.
Hi, everybody. Dottie, alcoholic. Unfortunately, I have to leave, so I'm going to share quickly, and what I'm sharing is also going to be in the chat. So along with the steps were the principles, and when the principles came to be, each step had a principle to it. So step 1, the principle for step 1 was honesty. Step 2's principle was hope. Step 3's principle was faith. Step 4 was courage. Step 5 was integrity. Step 6 is willingness. Step 7 is humility. Step 8 is brotherly love. Step 9 is discipline. Step 10 is perseverance. Step 11 is spirituality. And step 12 is service. And I put that in the chat, and there's a couple other things, tidbits I put in the chat also. I kind of hit enter before I was supposed to, so it's going to be a little out of order, but I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. Ladies, thank you so much for a good day. I love this chapter, and I'm so sad I have to leave early to start another meeting for somebody. And it's a beginner's meeting, or I would have said no selfishly, but I have to go. And and I will see you in 2 weeks, unfortunately. Take care, guys.
I love you, Dottie.
I love you too.
And if you follow along with our big book study with Tuesdays and Thursdays, step 1 with the honesty, that applies when we're looking at problems in our lives, and we want to apply these principles to all of our affairs. If we have a situation come up, step 1 is where we look for the problem, and when we're coming into this program, the problem is us and our alcoholism. And in other situations in life, we want to be able to honestly look at what the situation is, and so that's how we can apply step 1 to that. Sherilyn.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, an alcoholic. Along with the principles, I have, as a side note, the steps broken down. So the first 3 steps taught me how to give up. The 4, 5, and 6 taught me how to own up. 7, 8, and 9 taught me how to make up, and 10, 11, and 12 how to grow up. And that kind of helps me to, chunk it out in my head. Okay, what am I working on right now? Giving up, owning up, making up, or growing up? It's always a continual, but that kind of helped me to put it in a smaller chunk of perspective. That's it.
Absolutely. And you can break it down a couple more ways. So 1 to 3 can be the trust God. 4 to 9 can be clean house. 10, 11, and 12 help others. So you see that a lot of the time. Trust God, clean house, help others. And I also like to use another analogy is 1, 2, and 3 is building a relationship with God and yourself. 4 through 9 is cleaning up the relationships of your past. And 10, 11, and 12 is practicing all of these principles in new relationships moving forward. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can break that down. Marianne.
Hi, I'm Marianne. I'm an alcoholic. Just quick. Number one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. You hear all the time, oh, well, that's the car, the this, the that. No, it's not. It's what's in your head and what you're thinking, is my understanding of that, because most people just think, everything around you is like crazy, but no, we're unmanageable inside of us. So I don't know what your thought is.
Yes, definitely unmanageable. Like a lot of people say my life was unmanageable. I can't pay my bills. I can't keep a relationship. Those are just human problems. Everybody has those. It's how we can deal with them. So for me, when I learned that my life is unmanageable, I can't control the amount of alcohol I take when I start to consume it. I can't control my actions when I start to drink. And I'm powerless over alcohol is that the mental malady where once I say I'm going to stop, I can't stop. And I find myself picking up and I can't explain it. So for me, I broke it down into the 2 symptoms of alcoholism as opposed to the human condition where we can't solve our problems. Leslie P.
Leslie, alcoholic. Really appreciate the ladies sharing about the mental illness and a few things that about bipolar and depression, because it's just really brought the light bulb came on with me because of my brother being ill, and he's been discharged from the hospital, and we were going over his medications last night, and I was Googling them just to make sure. A lot of them were vitamins, but there were ones for antidepressant, bipolar, anxiety. So that just brings it really home with me that he has probably been struggling with this for a lot longer than I cared to even think. And that's why he kept on starting the program, stopping the program, starting it, stop, because he just didn't have that focus. So thanks very, very much, ladies.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Stick around after the meeting, and we'll do that after the meeting chat, too. I know you're struggling with a lot. All right, I think we can squeeze in a little bit more. At 13 minutes. All right, let's flip the page. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one amongst us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. So it shifts a little bit on this page. This is why I split it up. So when we talked about step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, it's not as a result of these steps. It's as a result, as the result of these steps. So the spiritual awakening is to come when we have completed these steps. So that would be 1 through 11, which brings us to 12. And then once we've had a spiritual awakening, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So a lot of people are like, oh, I did a set of steps. Now I'm working my set of steps. I'm working my set of steps. No, we've done our set of steps. We've learned our spiritual principles. Now we take our principles and apply them to our lives. It's not, I'm working my steps, I'm working my steps, I'm working my steps. It's, now I have spiritual principles, and I'm going to apply those principles I've learned to my life. And now that I've had my spiritual awakening, I'm going to carry this message. Not my message, not George down the street's message, this message. I'm going to share this message, the book's message, not my message. Kim's message is a mess. I can share the message that I learned from the book. And of course, many of us exclaimed one in order, I can't go through with it. Don't be discouraged. We've all felt that way. You know, this is a simple program, but it is overwhelming when we get here. We're not saints. The point is we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. It's been said in this book many times before we got to this page, and it's going to be said many, many times after this. This is a beginning. We've read that many times. This is a beginning. This is a beginning. This is a beginning. We're not saints. We're here to grow. We're here to grow and learn. And it says back on page 15 at the top of the page how we grow. And it is directly referring to to step 12. It says, we perfect and enlarge our spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice with others. So if we want to grow along spiritual lives, we need to practice step 12, right? So that's how we tie that in. And then it says our version of the Alcoholic Chapter to the Agnostic makes clear 3 pertinent ideas. These are the ideas that we have to remember, because remember, we can't remember. And we got A, B, and C, and well, they sound a lot like 1, 2, and 3. So we need to keep grounded in that. Libby! Unmute.
Got me?
Yep.
Thank you, Kim. Libby Alcoholic, still here. Still loving this big book. So much is said in that 12th step. Holy mackerel. Having had a spiritual awakening, Kim, you just did such a good job breaking it down. Just a few things I want to, add to it is that, so when I first came in, I definitely heard that step, and I'm definitely alcoholic. So I definitely, looked to step 12 when I hadn't even done, a step 2 yet, and I looked at it and thought, how the heck am I going to find time in my busy life to be helping alcoholics all over the place? I had nothing in my life. First of all, I had nothing. There was no purpose. There was no helping anyone else. I had the things, right, that we talk about, like the job and the home and all of that stuff. My life was still completely unmanageable. And I didn't realize that I didn't have to worry about step 12 yet. I didn't have to. I had to do the rest of the steps. And then 12, like Kim said, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. So I had done, steps 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11, all the steps. And I had a spiritual awakening, which means I had a psychic change. The way that I thought about the world, the way that I thought about myself had changed. I didn't do that. That was the steps and God. So when I had that, I was able to carry this message that I had learned, and I was told by my sponsor, like Kim said, do not try and carry Libby's message. Libby has the mess. The message is in the big book. And she told me, and I get the chills saying this, she said, everything I told you was what my sponsor told me. Everything we did was through the big book. I didn't do anything special. If you want a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, I'm going to give you that recipe. And if you follow it exactly, you're going to get the chocolate chip cookies that, I gave you. If you tell somebody that they're you know, that you have this other way that they could maybe do the 4th step, and you know, you just want to add a few things in. Those poor people are going to follow that recipe, and they're not going to get chocolate chip cookies, and they're going to think, why don't I have this, and why is this message being shown, you know? So I was told to share the message that I had learned in this big book, and that's why when I work with sponsees today, I tell them, I can't give you any advice. I have a whole chunk of I have 3 ring binders full of evidence that I don't know what I'm doing in my life. I don't know how to run it. So I know that I can tell you what was given to me, and I can tell you my experience. And that's what I do in my 12 step is I go through the big book exactly as it's outlined. And I definitely make mistakes. I definitely find myself saying, you know what, I think you should probably do about your boyfriend is. And then I have to go and I have to say, you know what, I have to make an amends. That's not my place to say that. You know, you've got to go to God. So that was something that's really huge for me to remember, is that I didn't get the message from Libby, and I won't give the message from Libby, because I have proven that I am just an alcoholic like you. My sponsees are no better or worse than I am. We're all the same. And then it says, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This is just as important. The 12th step is not just about sharing the message. It's about practicing the principles in all of my affairs. So if I start, which is where relapses have started for me, if I start to live by the principles that I used to live by when I was drinking, which were Libby comes first, you know, what's on the outside matters most, what I look like, what I have, what I can show people, you know, all of those principles. If I start living by those principles, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go backwards in the steps. And what I found is that I go, you know, so I start doing some shady things. I start not picking up the phone when my sponsees call. I start talking about people behind their backs, you know, things that I've been taught that are not spiritual principles. If I start doing those things, all of a sudden I'm not praying and meditating as much, right? So I'm back at step 11. And then I'm starting to feel kind of guilty. So I'm not making a personal inventory every day. I'm not looking at my behaviors. Stop making amends. Even go further than that. 7 and 6 start to come in. I stop being willing to ask God for help, you know? And then I'm back at step 1. And when I'm at step 1 and I don't have God on board, I don't have a defense against the first drink. So step 12 really, and the steps in general, they just are so perfect in the way that they work. We start at step 1 and we go to step 12, you know, but I have to continue 10 and 11 and 12, like they're my maintenance steps. And if I don't, I will go backwards right down the train. So it's very clear, you know, and it says it all in here. Like I said again, if you're in here and you're feeling overwhelmed, don't be overwhelmed. It says, what in order? I can't go through with it. Of course, none of us feel like we can help everybody and be perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. What we're meant to do is to reclaim spiritual progress. And if I'm not continually seeking God and searching for for more solutions to my spiritual malady, if I'm not growing, then I'm going backwards. I can't just hang out. I can't do the whole, like, you know, it's a mountain for me. So if I stop climbing the mountain, I slide backwards. And there's no in between. I can't just like chill out on, you know, a ledge. I have to keep seeking places that I can be of service. So it doesn't mean that I'm going to get, like I've said before, I've done so many third steps with sponsees, and I've yet to hear a fifth step. Does that mean that I'm a bad sponsor or I don't carry the message right? No, it just means that I haven't, you know, for some reason, there hasn't been somebody that, you know, has reached that point with me, but I have to keep trying because it's not personal. It's not about whether, like, when people get nervous to sponsor, they say like, oh, you know, what if I screw up this person's sobriety? And all I ever tell them is, I am responsible to you. I'm responsible to be there for you in your recovery, but I'm not responsible for you, for your sobriety. So just remember that. And, you know, just really, really, really excited to be on this meeting now. I don't want to monopolize it, but I just love all this. Thanks. That's it, Kim.
Thank you. Yeah, like I can go and buy a motorbike. But unless I learn how to turn it on, put gas in it, keep it upright, and drive it, I can't teach anybody how to ride a motorbike. I just own a motorbike. Just like anybody can have a big book, but if you've never gone through it and gotten to the end result, which is having a spiritual awakening and this relationship with God, really, it's just a book, right? You might as well use it as doorstop. Della! Don't use your big book as a doorstop. Please don't.
Unmute. Oh, there we go. I am Della and I'm an alcoholic. What I have beside that we were alcoholic and could not manage our lives is I couldn't manage my own thinking. So I thought that was pretty profound. That I've got our own thinking beside that point, and then I've got underlined probably as well. So that's all I got. Thanks, Kim.
Which directly correlates with step 1, Della. Donna.
Hey.
Oh, you muted yourself again. Hang on. There you go. Try again. Mute. There you go.
Okay. I am Donna. I'm an alcoholic. I love this part of the big book, and what brought to my mind was my sponsor always used to say to me, God is God and I am not. And I just think that's apropos for, that the point is we are willing to grow along spiritual lines, and the principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, and that I can't, with my sponsees, I can't tell them what to do. I can just make suggestions, and I just love step 12, and I like to be of service, and I just, the A, B, and C are definitely steps 1, 2, and 3, Kim, and this has just been a really great meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you know what? I love step 12. Step 12 is the meat and potatoes and the heart of this program. Like steps 1 through 11, that is the beginning. It gives us this foundation, but step 12 is where the growth happens. For me, absolutely. Joanne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi. And I don't use my big book as a book stop either. Or stop, no. So I want to talk about the what in order, can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us have been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. So when I first saw the 12 steps, I wanted to hyperventilate. It just seemed so overwhelming. But the kindness of this program is for people to turn to me and go, breathe, just breathe, it's okay. In retrospect, I am incredibly grateful that I had the gift of desperation. I didn't come in willingly, I crawled in. And my biggest fear was that you were going to ask me to leave and there was no place to go. So, whatever reservations I had got thrown out because I knew I was powerless over alcohol. I knew I was going to end up dead. I knew I was probably going to kill somebody. I knew that it was all going to be bad, and I had no hope. So I became willing. And there's this old timer who said he could describe getting AA in one sentence. So I leaned forward and he said, be willing to do everything you don't want to do. And because I had the gift of desperation, I did that. And over time, my desperation has been changed to a healthy respect of alcoholism. Like, I respect fire. I've seen an entire house burn down. I know what it can do. I have seen devastation from alcoholism because I've carried the message and I've helped, newcomers. And I've also seen what active alcoholism does to children and all of that. So and the most amazing thing is to see what a self-centeredness that happens when we are in the disease. And there's no open-mindedness that there is hope. So I have a really healthy respect for the disease. But I want to share this with the newcomers. Breathe, keep coming to meetings, and just don't drink. I was given a gift when I came in at 23 years old. And yeah, there's been times where I've not been perfect. But the one thing I know is I can't put alcohol to my mouth. I cannot smoke dope. I cannot take illicit drugs, because as soon as I open that door, my will is running. And I know that. I don't have to prove it to myself. I was convinced the day I walked in. And so I turn my thoughts and actions over to a power greater than myself. Please, you take that. And so, no, I've not been perfect. But the one thing I know, as long as I stay sober, I got another day to try. Just try. So don't drink, come to meetings, ask for help, and we love you, we want you, we need you. And that's all I'm going to share. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joanne.